There's a mystery that happens to you every single morning. You wake up holding the edge of something vast and luminous, a world your mind built entirely on its own. And then, within seconds, it's gone. Tonight, you'll discover why your brain lets go of its own creations and understand something quiet and beautiful about the mind that made them. Welcome to Get Sleepy Science. Wherever you are right now, perhaps lying in the dark with your thoughts still circling, or already feeling that first soft heaviness in your limbs, allow yourself to settle into this. We'll explore 100 dream science facts about why we forget our dreams, from the chemistry that erases them, to the sleeping brain that builds them, to what it means that we dreamed at all. These quiet journeys through the science of the sleeping mind create a space for restless people to finally rest. A gentle like, subscribe, or share creates a pathway for other dream chasers to find their way here and brings us closer to protect this peaceful corner of the internet. One sleepy soul at a time. It means everything to us. Let yourself settle completely here. Feel your jaw unclench, your breath deepen naturally. You can let these thoughts drift past without holding them. Sense that soothing heaviness enveloping you, like your consciousness slowly dimming its brightness. Thoughts dissolving into the peaceful fog of approaching sleep, safe and undisturbed. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're floating where memories rest safely in gentle darkness. Let your mind merge with infinite peace. And now we begin. Most people forget 90% of their dreams within 10 minutes of waking up. This isn't a failure of memory. It's a precise and deliberate feature of how the brain is built. While you sleep, your brain carefully constructs entire worlds, complete with characters, emotion, narrative, and sensation. But the moment you return to waking consciousness, a biological process begins, quietly dissolving those worlds like watercolors in rain. Scientists have studied this phenomenon for decades, and the more they look, the more they find that forgetting dreams is not an accident. It is, in many ways, the point. Tonight, as you listen, you'll begin to understand why, and perhaps, in understanding it, the forgetting will feel a little less like loss. Dreams occur primarily during a stage of sleep called REM, which stands for rapid eye movement. During this stage, your eyes move quickly beneath your closed lids. Your brain becomes highly active, and your body enters a state of voluntary muscle paralysis. This paralysis, called REM atonia, prevents you from physically acting out your dreams. Researchers at the National Institutes of Health have confirmed that REM sleep occupies roughly 20 to 25% of total sleep time in healthy adults, appearing in cycles of roughly 90 minutes throughout the night. The first REM period of the night is typically short, around 10 minutes. By the final cycle near morning, it can stretch to 45 minutes or longer. This is why the dreams you remember most vividly tend to be the ones you were having just before your alarm. The science of why we forget dreams begins with a single molecule, norepinephrine. This neurotransmitter, which plays a central role in alertness and memory formation during waking life, is almost completely absent from the brain during REM sleep. Without norepinephrine, the hippocampus, the brain region responsible for converting short-term experiences into long-term memories, cannot properly encode what is happening. Think of it as trying to write in ink that hasn't been made yet. The dream unfolds, vivid and real, but there is no chemical substrate available to preserve it. When you wake and norepinephrine returns, the moment for encoding has already passed. The dream existed fully. It simply had no way to stay. The hippocampus, that small curved structure deep in the brain, is sometimes described as the brain's librarian. During the day, it decides which experiences are worth filing permanently and which can be released. During REM sleep, this librarian is operating under unusual conditions. Brain imaging studies, including research published in journals like Nature Neuroscience, show that hippocampal activity during dreaming is different from its waking activity. It fires in patterns associated with memory replay, processing the emotional weight of experiences, but it does so without the full neurochemical support needed to create durable memory traces. The result is a dream that feels completely real while it is happening, but leaves almost no footprint behind. There is a specific protein that helps consolidate memories during sleep. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor, often abbreviated BDNF. This protein supports the growth and strengthening of neural connections. Research suggests that BDNF levels fluctuate across sleep stages, rising during deeper NREM stages where slow-wave memory consolidation happens, and remaining lower during much of REM sleep. This chemical rhythm helps explain why procedural memories, how to ride a bike, how to play a chord, tend to consolidate beautifully during sleep, while the experiential content of dreams, the stories, the faces, the feelings, does not. The brain is not sleeping indiscriminately. It is choosing, with quiet precision, what to keep. One of the earliest systematic studies of dreaming was conducted in the early 1950s by researchers Eugene Aserinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman at the University of Chicago. In discovering REM sleep itself, they made a significant secondary finding. When subjects were awakened during REM sleep, they reported vivid, detailed dreams in nearly 80% of cases. When awakened during non-REM sleep, recall dropped considerably. Published in the journal Science in 1953, this work gave sleep science its first measurable window into the dreaming brain, and established that dreaming is tied to a specific, observable physiological state. One, the brain enters and exits in rhythmic cycles from the moment you fall asleep. One reason dreams fade so quickly upon waking is the sudden shift in brain chemistry. As you transition from REM sleep to waking consciousness, a cascade of neurochemical changes occurs within seconds. Acetylcholine, which is abundant during dreaming, begins to decline. Serotonin and norepinephrine, largely suppressed during REM, surge back. The prefrontal cortex, quieted during dreams, reactivates rapidly. This biochemical tide change happens faster than any thought you can form. And in that gap, between the dream state chemistry and the waking state chemistry, the dream exists only in what researchers call a transitional memory trace, a fragile imprint that dissolves unless you make a deliberate, immediate effort to capture it. The window is narrow. Within 2 to 3 minutes, the majority of dream content is already gone. Research from the Lyon Neuroscience Research Center in France has suggested that people who remember their dreams frequently tend to show greater activity in the temporoparietal junction, a brain region involved in self-awareness and directing attention inward. These high recallers also showed more frequent nighttime micro-awakenings, brief moments of wakefulness that most people don't consciously register. The theory these researchers proposed is worth sitting with. A short awakening during or just after REM may give the brain a narrow window to begin encoding dream content. Without that moment, the dream never makes contact with the waking memory system at all. Dream recall, it turns out, may be less about dreaming more vividly and more about waking, very briefly, at just the right moment. The temperature of your sleeping environment may influence how well you remember your dreams. Studies suggest that slightly cooler room temperatures, around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, tend to promote deeper, more consolidated sleep with longer REM periods. Longer REM periods mean more dreaming, especially closer to waking, means a higher chance of recall. But the relationship is indirect. A cooler room doesn't preserve dream memories chemically. It simply creates conditions where the REM stage most favorable to long, vivid dreams is more likely to occur near the time you naturally wake, giving your brain the best possible chance of catching the dream before it dissolves. So far, we understand that forgetting dreams is not a malfunction. It is woven into the chemistry of sleep itself, the very neurochemical environment that makes dreaming possible. High acetylcholine, low norepinephrine, reduced prefrontal activity is the same environment that makes memory formation nearly impossible. This is not contradictory. It may be by design. As we continue tonight, we'll look deeper into what dreaming actually does and begin to understand why a brain that builds these worlds might also need to let them go. The science of dream forgetting is really the science of what the sleeping mind values. And what it values, as it turns out, is not the story. It is something quieter and far more essential. During waking life, the prefrontal cortex, the brain's center of logic, judgment, and self-awareness, is constantly active. It is the part of you that notices inconsistencies, questions narratives, and grounds you in reality. During REM sleep, activity in the prefrontal cortex drops significantly. This deactivation is one of the main reasons dreams feel so real while they are happening. Without the prefrontal cortex critically evaluating the narrative, you don't notice that you are flying, or that your childhood home has 3 extra rooms, or that a stranger is somehow also your grandmother. The dream logic feels seamless. And when you wake and the prefrontal cortex reactivates, the dream's fragile, illogical structure often collapses immediately under its scrutiny, taking the memory with it. The amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, is unusually active during dreaming. This explains why so many dreams carry such intense emotional weight. Fear, joy, grief, longing, often more vivid than anything we feel while awake. Research published in Current Biology has shown that the amygdala plays a central role in the emotional content of dreams, and that processing difficult emotional experiences during REM sleep may reduce their psychological weight over time. Matthew Walker's research at the University of California, Berkeley has described this process as overnight therapy. where the brain represents emotionally charged memories in a neurochemical environment with lower cortisol, allowing us to revisit and soften them. The emotion is processed. The dream that carried it is not preserved. Dreams are not simply replays of recent events. The brain uses dreaming to combine experiences in novel ways, pulling from the distant past and the immediate present simultaneously. Researchers have found that dream content tends to follow what they call a day residue and remote memory pattern. Recent events, especially emotionally significant ones, appear in dreams within 1 to 2 days. But dreams also incorporate memories from years ago with some regularity, a pattern some researchers call the dream lag effect. Though the precise mechanism is still being studied, the brain is not filing a faithful record. It is something more like an editor, pulling scenes from different parts of your life and weaving them into something new. Perhaps that is why, when a dream vanishes, it leaves behind only a feeling rather than a story. The feeling was the point. Some researchers believe that forgetting dreams may serve an important protective function. If we remembered every dream with perfect clarity, we might struggle to distinguish dream memories from real ones. This concern is not theoretical. People with certain neurological conditions that disrupt the normal forgetting of dream content report exactly this problem. Intrusive dream memories that feel indistinguishable from actual events, contributing to confusion, anxiety, and distorted perception. The healthy forgetting of dreams, then, may be part of what keeps our internal narrative coherent. It is the brain's way of marking a boundary. This was a creation of sleep. Let it return to sleep. Children remember their dreams more frequently than adults, and their dreams tend to be more intensely emotional and visual. Research from the Max Planck Institute of Psychiatry found that children under the age of 9 often dream in a more static, image-based way, with fewer social interactions and more animal characters than adult dreams. As the brain matures, dream narratives become more complex and more self-referential. The frequency of dream recall also changes with age, generally peaking in young adulthood and declining gradually through middle age. Sleep researchers believe this reflects the ongoing maturation of the prefrontal cortex, changes in REM architecture across a lifetime, and shifting neurochemical balances. The dreams of childhood leave some of their deepest impressions precisely because the young brain has a slightly greater capacity to hold on to them. What you do in the first few minutes after waking determines almost entirely whether you will remember your dream. The neuroscience is clear on this. The transitional memory trace left by a dream begins fading the moment waking consciousness activates. Physical movement, especially sitting up, swinging your legs over the side of the bed, triggers vestibular and proprioceptive signals that rapidly accelerate the shift away from REM consciousness. Checking your phone floods the brain with new sensory input and social information that competes directly with the fragile dream trace. Sleep researchers consistently recommend lying still for 2 to 3 minutes after waking, keeping your eyes closed if possible, and gently reaching for whatever feeling or image remains. Not forcing it, simply waiting, quietly, at the door of sleep. Keeping a dream journal is the most widely supported method for improving dream recall. Studies show that people who write down their dreams within minutes of waking, even fragments, even just a single word or color or feeling, begin to recall dreams with greater frequency and detail within 2 to 4 weeks. The act of writing appears to strengthen the neural pathways associated with introspective attention. gradually training the brain to hold dream content a little longer before it dissolves. Dream journals have been used in psychological research for decades, and they remain a cornerstone of both clinical sleep research and therapeutic practice. There is something quietly meaningful about the idea that paying attention to disappearing things can slow their disappearance. Alcohol is one of the most powerful suppressors of REM sleep known to science. Even moderate consumption within a few hours of sleep can suppress the first 1 or 2 REM cycles of the night entirely. While the total amount of sleep may not change, the structure changes considerably, with far less of the dreaming sleep that normally occurs in the early hours. As the alcohol metabolizes, a rebound effect often occurs in the second half of the night, with fragmented, intensely vivid dreams and frequent awakenings. This disrupted REM architecture not only reduces the emotional processing benefits of dreaming, but leaves most dream content unrecoverable. The brain, deprived of its natural rhythm, catches fragments but cannot hold them. Certain medications profoundly affect dream recall. Beta blockers, used for heart conditions and anxiety, are known to reduce REM sleep and suppress dream activity. Many antidepressants, particularly those in the SSRI class, also suppress REM, often measurably reducing dream recall as a side effect. Conversely, some medications, including certain antidepressants that are discontinued, can produce REM rebound, causing unusually vivid, long, and emotionally intense dreams that are difficult to forget. Researchers continue to map the complex relationship between pharmaceuticals and dream architecture, recognizing that the dreaming brain is not simply a byproduct of sleep, but a sensitive indicator of neurochemical balance throughout the entire system. Stress affects dream recall in 2 opposing ways. Acute stress, the short-term kind, tends to increase REM activity and produce more vivid, emotionally intense dreams that are easier to remember. Chronic stress, however, disrupts sleep architecture over time, reducing the quality of REM cycles and fragmenting the consolidation process. People under chronic stress often report a paradoxical experience: sleeping more but remembering less, waking frequently but holding on to nothing. This pattern reflects the brain under sustained pressure, managing too many competing priorities to complete the quiet work of dream formation and gentle forgetting that healthy sleep requires rest. True rest is a precondition for the brain's most intimate housekeeping. The color of dreams is a surprisingly layered area in sleep science. For much of the 20th century, many researchers assumed people dreamed in black and white, partly because early surveys supported this. Later research, including studies comparing people who grew up watching black and white television with those who grew up with color television, found that early visual media exposure appeared to influence dream color. More recent neuroimaging studies confirm that the visual cortex is active during REM sleep, processing imagery using the same color encoding pathways as waking vision. Most researchers now believe dreams are inherently in color, but that the memory of color fades faster than the memory of narrative, leaving behind only the outline of what was seen. The dream was vivid. The color is the first thing to go. Blind individuals dream, though the content of their dreams differs based on when they lost their sight. People who were blind from birth or lost sight before age 5 typically experience dreams composed primarily of sound, touch, smell, and emotion, with little or no visual imagery. Those who lost sight after age 5 tend to retain visual dreaming to varying degrees, with visual content slowly declining over years as visual memories fade. This finding, documented across multiple studies, including research published in the journal Sleep, reveals something worth sitting with about the dreaming brain. It does not simply replay the world as it is. It recreates the world as you experienced it, using whatever senses were available to you at the time your mind first learned to dream. There is a specific period of the night most associated with the dreams you are most likely to remember: the final 90-minute sleep cycle, the one you complete just before your natural waking time. This final REM period is typically the longest, most vivid, and most cognitively complex of the night. It is also the closest to waking consciousness, meaning the brain has the shortest distance to travel to bring dream content into accessible memory. Sleep researchers refer to this as the morning dream window. If you wake naturally, without an alarm, from this final cycle, dream recall is considerably higher than if an alarm interrupts it. The dream caught mid-cycle by a sudden alarm is like a sentence interrupted mid-word. The meaning is already lost. Some animals show clear REM sleep signatures, suggesting they dream as well. Rats demonstrate this vividly. Researchers at MIT observed that rats replay the neural firing patterns associated with running a maze during subsequent REM sleep, with the same sequences, the same timing, the same spatial maps activating in their sleeping brains. Cats, dogs, primates, and birds all show REM-like sleep stages with associated behavioral signs: twitching, eye movement, vocalization. Whether these animals experience something subjective, something that feels like anything from the inside, remains one of the deepest open questions in neuroscience. But the neural machinery for dreaming appears ancient, conserved across hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Whatever dreaming does for us, it mattered enough for the brain to keep it. 25 facts in. A pattern is emerging. Forgetting dreams is not an oversight or a limitation. It is woven into the very chemistry that makes dreaming possible. The brain that dreams and the brain that remembers are, in a meaningful sense, running on different neurochemical operating systems. What we are beginning to understand is that the sleeping mind is doing something it needs to do, something that required the development of forgetting as part of its design. As we continue, the picture will deepen. We will look at what dreams are actually doing while the memory of them fades, at the biology of why some dreams survive the morning, and at what it means for a mind to create something it was never meant to keep. Let's pause here and notice your body. As you breathe out slowly, appreciate each tiny cell inside, trillions of organisms working in silence, heart beating, lungs breathing, brain thinking, all without your command. And right now, even as you listen, your brain is doing something gentle. It is preparing to dream. It is quietly shifting chemistry, slowing certain signals, softening its grip on the waking world. Notice the gentle sensations on your skin, in your muscles, along your spine. You are a complete ecosystem, diverse, self-balancing, already moving towards sleep without any effort from you at all. Now we continue. The phenomenon of lucid dreaming, becoming aware that you are dreaming while still inside the dream, offers researchers a window into dream consciousness. Groundbreaking work by Keith Hearn at the University of Hull in the United Kingdom, completed around 1978, used an electro-oculograph to record pre-agreed eye movement signals from sleeping subjects, providing early laboratory evidence that such awareness was possible. Stephen LaBerge at Stanford University independently developed methods in the 1980s, using polysomnographic recording to confirm the same phenomenon. More recently, research by Konkoly and colleagues, published in Current Biology in 2021, demonstrated that researchers from 4 independent laboratories could exchange simple signals with lucid dreamers in real time during sleep. The dreaming mind, it turns out, can sometimes hear the world it left behind. Lucid dreamers tend to have better dream recall than non-lucid dreamers. This is not coincidental. The awareness that activates during a lucid dream, the recognition that this is a dream, requires a partial reactivation of the prefrontal cortex. This partial activation appears to create a bridge between dream state consciousness and waking state memory systems. Lucid dreamers, even when not actively directing their dreams, seem to develop a practiced attentiveness toward their dream experience that carries over into improved recall upon waking. Sleep researchers see this as further evidence that dream recall is, at its core, an attentional phenomenon. The brain remembers what it was paying attention to, even in sleep. Dream content is not random. The continuity hypothesis, developed over decades by sleep researchers including William Domhoff at the University of California, Santa Cruz, proposes that dream content reflects the dreamer's waking concerns, relationships, and emotional preoccupations. Studies analyzing thousands of dream reports find that people dream most frequently about the people they interact with most, the places they spend most time, and the concerns that occupy their waking thoughts. Athletes dream about their sport. Students dream about exams. The dreaming brain is not inventing from nothing. It is working, in its own oblique way, with the material of your life. And yet, all of this precisely drawn content, so faithfully borrowed from waking experience, is almost entirely forgotten by morning. The brain knew exactly what to include, and just as quietly, it chose to let it go. There is a documented pattern called the dream rebound effect when it comes to thought suppression. Research building on Daniel Wegner's work on mental control found that when people were instructed not to think about a particular person or topic before sleep, that content appeared in their dreams with greater frequency. The sleeping brain, released from the effort of suppression, freely generated what the waking brain had been working hard to avoid. This finding has meaningful implications for understanding anxiety, dreams, and nightmares. The harder you try to avoid something in waking life, the more likely it is to find you in sleep. The brain, it seems, cannot suppress and dream simultaneously. Nightmares are far more common than most people realize. Studies suggest that roughly 65 to 70% of adults experience nightmares at least occasionally, and 5 to 8% experience nightmares frequently enough to cause distress or sleep disruption. Nightmares occur primarily during REM sleep, typically later in the night, and are distinguished from ordinary unpleasant dreams by the intensity of their emotional content and their tendency to wake the sleeper. Research suggests nightmares are strongly associated with daytime stress. trauma, and emotional dysregulation. Interestingly, nightmares are among the most commonly recalled dreams, precisely because they wake us. The brain remembers the dream it was interrupted in the middle of. Even in unpleasant dreams, the forgetting mechanism is overridden by the abruptness of waking. Post-traumatic stress disorder provides a clear and revealing window into what happens when the normal dream-forgetting process is disrupted. People with PTSD frequently experience intrusive, repetitive nightmares in which traumatic memories are replayed with disturbing fidelity. Unlike ordinary dreams, which are typically transformed and reshaped by the dreaming brain, trauma nightmares often replicate actual events with little or no distortion. Researchers believe this reflects a disruption of the emotional processing that normally occurs during REM sleep. Instead of integrating and softening the emotional charge of a difficult memory, the brain replays it unprocessed. The nightmare is remembered not because the brain chose to remember it, but because the emotional alarm it triggered forced waking before forgetting could begin. The relationship between dreams and creativity is well documented and deeply fascinating. Thomas Edison reportedly napped in a deliberate way, holding small objects in each hand so that the moment sleep deepened, the objects would drop and wake him at the hypnagogic threshold. Whether the precise historical details are fully verified is less certain than the principle he seemed to understand. The edge of sleep held something useful, and he arranged his rest to catch it. Paul McCartney reportedly woke one morning with the complete melody for Yesterday already present from a dream. Recent research, including a 2021 study in Science Advances by Celia Lacaux and colleagues, found that the hypnagogic state, the brief transition into sleep, is associated with creative insight at rates higher than full wakefulness or deeper sleep. Sleep paralysis is a phenomenon closely related to REM physiology. During normal REM sleep, the brain sends signals that temporarily quiet the voluntary muscles. Occasionally, this quieting persists for a brief period after waking, leaving the person fully conscious but unable to move. Sleep paralysis episodes typically last from a few seconds to several minutes and are often accompanied by vivid sensations, which are essentially fragments of dream imagery present at the boundary of waking consciousness. Research suggests sleep paralysis occurs in roughly 8% of the general population at some point in their lives, and is more common during periods of stress or disrupted sleep. It is one of the rare moments when the normally invisible boundary between dreaming and waking becomes briefly, uncomfortably visible. The science of why some people are natural high dream recallers while others rarely remember dreams at all has advanced considerably in recent years. Neuroimaging studies, including research from the Lyon Neuroscience Research Center, have identified genuine variation in the brains of high recallers, more active medial prefrontal cortex regions, greater connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and the temporoparietal junction, and more frequent spontaneous micro-awakenings during the night. These differences appear to reflect how individual brains are wired rather than learned habits. About 30 to 40% of adults report remembering dreams rarely or never, and this appears to be, at least in part, a neurological trait rather than a reflection of how much or how vividly they dream. The hypnagogic state, the threshold between wakefulness and sleep, and its counterpart, the hypnopompic state, the threshold between sleep and wakefulness, are both associated with a distinctive type of semi-dreaming. During hypnagogia, the mind produces vivid images, sounds, and sensations that can feel entirely real, even though the person is barely asleep. These experiences are neurologically distinct from full REM dreams, involving different patterns of brain activity, and they are generally better remembered than dreams. Researchers believe this is because the prefrontal cortex is still partially active during these transitional states, providing just enough waking state attentional scaffolding to allow memory encoding to begin. The images at the edge of sleep are easier to catch than those at its depths. Dream content changes systematically across the night. Early dreams, occurring in the first REM periods, tend to be briefer, more mundane, and closely connected to events of the preceding day. As the night progresses and REM periods lengthen, dream content becomes more complex, emotionally layered, and narratively rich, drawing on older memories, distant relationships, and seemingly unconnected associations. This progression reflects the shifting biochemical environment of sleep, as certain hormones move through their nightly cycles and body temperature traces its natural arc. The dreaming brain shifts its register. The dreams of late night are stranger and richer than the dreams of early night, which is part of why the ones closest to morning are both the hardest to forget and the hardest to fully explain. Across cultures and throughout recorded history, humans have placed profound significance on dreams. Ancient Egyptians believed certain dreams were messages from the divine, and maintained dedicated dream temples where priests offered interpretation. Indigenous cultures worldwide developed traditions of dream sharing and communal meaning-making. Freud's interpretation of dreams, published in 1900, proposed that dreams were a pathway to the unconscious, a claim that has been substantially revised but never entirely dismissed by modern neuroscience. While contemporary sleep science frames dreams in terms of neural activity and memory processing, the cultural weight of dreams, their sense of meaning and emotional resonance, remains as present as ever. And across all of these traditions, one thing held. The dream not spoken aloud before sunrise was lost. The forgetting was as universal as the dreaming itself. One of the consistent findings in dream research is that negative emotions tend to predominate in dream content. Multiple large-scale studies analyzing thousands of dream reports have found that anxiety, fear, sadness, and frustration appear more frequently in dreams than joy, pleasure, or contentment. Some researchers estimate that threatening experiences appear in dreams at roughly twice the rate they occur in waking life. This pattern has been interpreted in various ways, as evidence that the brain prioritizes processing unresolved difficulties during sleep, as a form of internal rehearsal that prepares the sleeping mind for waking challenges, or as a reflection of the amygdala's influence on REM stage brain activity. Whatever the reason, the dreaming mind leans toward the difficult and processes it in the dark. The phenomenon of recurring dreams offers a particular lens on dream forgetting. Recurring dreams, reported by more than half of all adults at some point in their lives, are defined by their repetition of the same core theme, setting, or scenario across multiple nights. Research suggests that recurring dreams are associated with unresolved emotional concerns, ongoing stresses, or psychological patterns that the brain returns to repeatedly. The fact that these dreams are remembered, sometimes across years or even decades, suggests that the normally quiet forgetting process can be softened when content is emotionally significant enough, or when the brain has not found what it is looking for. A recurring dream may be, in a sense, the brain's way of returning to something it hasn't finished yet. 40 facts in, and the picture is becoming clear. The brain forgets most dreams not because it doesn't value them, but because the very conditions that allow dreaming to happen, low norepinephrine, suppressed prefrontal activity, altered hippocampal function, are incompatible with memory formation. The dreams that survive into waking are the exceptions. Those that occurred close to natural waking, those interrupted by strong emotion, those that happened during partial awakenings that created a brief bridge between dreaming and waking consciousness. As we continue, we will move deeper into what dreams are actually doing during all that forgetting, and into the quiet implications of a mind that builds worlds it was never designed to fully remember. You're still here, still listening, still drifting with us through these quiet corridors of the dreaming mind. Just notice. Don't judge. Just notice where your mind is. We're exploring consciousness itself, the very thing doing the exploring right now. Strange, beautiful, and perfectly calm. Let's drift onward together. The glymphatic system is one of the most significant discoveries in neuroscience in recent decades. First described by researchers at the University of Rochester in 2012, this network of channels surrounding the brain's blood vessels acts as a waste clearance system, flushing out metabolic byproducts during sleep. The glymphatic system is considerably more active during sleep than during wakefulness, and it operates most efficiently during deep NREM sleep. Disrupted sleep, particularly insufficient slow-wave sleep, reduces glymphatic clearance over time. While the glymphatic system does not directly cause dream forgetting, it reflects the same essential truth. Sleep is the body's most active restoration period, doing its most important work while the waking mind is entirely unaware. The brain cleans itself in the dark, and so does the rest of you. Memory consolidation during sleep is not a single process. Sleep researchers have identified at least two distinct types. Declarative memory, the kind that holds facts and events, is consolidated primarily during slow-wave NREM sleep, when the hippocampus replays the day's experiences to the cortex for long-term storage. Procedural memory, the kind that holds skills and habits, consolidates primarily during REM sleep, through a process that appears to involve the motor cortex and basal ganglia. Dream content arises during the same REM sleep that consolidates procedural knowledge. But the consolidation of the dream itself is not what the brain is prioritizing. It is consolidating the skill, the pattern, the habit. The narrative dream is, in a sense, the background music of a brain doing something else entirely. The role of REM sleep in emotional regulation has become one of the most active areas in sleep science. Research from Matthew Walker's laboratory and others has found that a full night of REM sleep measurably reduces the emotional reactivity of the amygdala compared to sleep-deprived subjects, in some measures by a substantial margin. This suggests that dreaming, or at least the neurochemical state of REM sleep, serves as a nightly emotional reset, softening the charge of difficult experiences from the previous day. The dreams you don't remember may have done more emotional work than the ones you do. The forgetting, in this view, is not a failure. It is evidence that the processing was completed. You woke up lighter because something was left behind in the night. There is a small but well-documented subset of the population who appear to dream very little, or not at all. Some of these individuals have damage to specific regions of the brain, including the white matter connecting the frontal and parietal lobes, suggesting these pathways are necessary for normal dream generation or recall. Others appear neurologically typical, but consistently report no dream experience across years of observation. Researchers remain uncertain whether these individuals simply forget all their dreams, or whether something different is happening at the level of dream generation itself. What is clear is that the capacity to dream and the capacity to remember dreaming are both biologically grounded and individually variable in ways science is still working to fully understand. The social dimension of dreaming is underappreciated. Research by Tore Nielsen and colleagues has found that social interactions, particularly emotionally significant ones, are among the most common elements of dream content across all cultures studied. We dream about the people we love, the people we fear, the people we've lost, and the people we haven't thought of consciously in years. The dreaming brain appears to use sleep as a social rehearsal space, processing conflicts and maintaining emotional connections to the important figures in our inner world. These rehearsals, however emotionally real they feel, are almost never remembered in the morning. The brain ran the simulation and cleared the log. What improved was not the record. It was you. Prospective memory. The ability to remember to do something in the future is affected by sleep in ways closely related to dream processing. Studies have found that people who get a full night of sleep before an important task are considerably better at remembering to carry it out than those who are sleep deprived. More interestingly, research suggests that dreaming about a future task appears to improve subsequent performance on that task. Even when the dream content is not a direct rehearsal, the dreaming brain seems to simulate, prepare, and organize not just past experience, but anticipated future experience. A finding that adds yet another layer to the question of what is being lost when a dream dissolves in the morning. The timing of your sleep relative to your natural circadian rhythm influences dream recall in ways that feel almost architectural. People who wake during their natural rising phase, when cortisol is beginning to climb and the body is preparing to emerge from sleep, tend to recall dreams more clearly. Cortisol, while associated with stress in excess, is a key signal in the transition from sleep to wakefulness, and its gradual rise appears to support the movement of dream content from short-term trace to accessible memory. This is one reason why waking to an alarm, which interrupts this gradual process, so consistently leaves you with no memory of what you were dreaming. The cortisol had not yet arrived to help bring the dream across. Dream incubation, the practice of deliberately focusing on a problem or question before sleep in hopes that the dreaming mind will work on it, has been practiced for thousands of years and studied in laboratory settings for decades. Research from Harvard Medical School found that subjects who were asked to think about specific problems before sleeping reported dreams related to those problems at higher rates than controls, and occasionally reported insights upon waking that felt connected to the pre-sleep problem. The mechanism appears to involve the same priming processes that operate in waking cognition. The brain continues working on what you gave it to work on. It just does the work in a different state, using different tools, and leaves only the result behind. The experience of déjà vu, that uncanny sense of having been somewhere before, has many proposed explanations in neuroscience. most involving mismatch in familiarity and memory retrieval pathways. One less common suggestion is that unremembered dreams might occasionally prime neural patterns that a waking experience later reactivates. This idea is not widely established and is offered here as a possibility rather than a settled finding. What it does capture is something poetically true about forgotten dreams. They may not be fully gone. They may leave traces too faint to name, but present enough to surface as that brief, ghostly recognition. Something you know you've seen before, but can't quite find. Halfway through our journey tonight, the answer to why you forget your dreams has been coming into focus from many angles. The chemistry of REM sleep prevents encoding. The return of waking consciousness erases what little was beginning to form. The brain prioritizes emotional processing and memory consolidation over preserving the narrative dream experience. And the dreams that survive are survivors precisely because something, a brief awakening, a strong emotion, a practiced attentiveness, created a bridge where there normally is none. What remains to explore is the deeper question. What does it mean for a mind to create something so vivid, so emotionally real, and then release it? And what might we understand about ourselves from the few fragments that remain? Let each breath guide you to realize time is yours, a separate stream that only you are living. Right now, your brain is resting between two worlds, the one you know when awake, and the one it quietly builds while you sleep. Each of those worlds is real in its own way. Each belongs to you. Cherish this present moment, knowing that right now, your time is unique. No one else is having exactly this experience, in exactly this body, at exactly this moment. The universe is vast and old, and you are here, in it, breathing, listening, letting go, and we continue drifting. Sleep deprivation increases the emotional intensity of dreams when sleep is finally allowed. After even one night without sleep, the subsequent recovery night shows a pronounced REM rebound, with longer, more vivid, and more emotionally layered dream periods. People often describe these recovery dreams as unusually intense, sometimes unsettling, sometimes unusually beautiful. The brain, denied its nightly emotional processing, is catching up, and the dreams from these recovery nights are among the most frequently remembered. Perhaps because their emotional weight creates enough of a signal to bridge the gap between dreaming and waking consciousness. Even without ideal conditions for memory formation, the phenomenon of false awakening is one of the stranger edges of dream science. In a false awakening, the dreamer believes they have woken up and are going about their morning routine, only to discover, sometimes through an impossibility, a clock that won't read correctly, a door that leads somewhere wrong, that they are still dreaming. False awakenings occur predominantly in REM sleep and are particularly common during periods of high stress or sleep disruption. They suggest something worth reflecting on about the brain's internal model of waking life. It is so deeply encoded that the dreaming brain can reproduce it almost perfectly. The dream knows what waking up looks like. It has watched you do it thousands of times. Rapid eye movement during REM sleep was long assumed to represent the dreamer's eyes following the visual content of the dream. Some research has supported this, showing correlations between eye movement direction and reported dream imagery in lucid dreamers. But more recent work has complicated this picture. finding that eye movements during REM are also associated with memory consolidation processes that extend beyond visual scanning. The eyes move, but they may be doing several things at once. The dreaming brain is not a cinema. It is a processing center running quietly in parallel. And the rapid eye movement we can observe from outside is only one small signal from a system of layered complexity. Smell is the sense least commonly represented in dreams. Research consistently finds that while visual and auditory content dominates dream experience, smell and taste appear in only 1 to 2% of dream reports. This is consistent with what neuroscience knows about the olfactory system, which processes smell through pathways that connect directly to the amygdala and hippocampus. During REM sleep, the thalamus plays a key role in generating sensory experience within the dream, but the more direct olfactory pathways are largely quiet. This means that even the most vivid dream rarely carries a scent. The brain builds an entire world and leaves out the smell of it entirely. And when the dream dissolves in the morning, the missing scent is the first thing to go. The outline remains briefly. Then that too is gone. The neuroscience of dream narrative, how the dreaming brain constructs a story rather than simply producing random imagery, is an active area of current research. Studies using high-density electroencephalography have identified specific neural oscillation patterns associated with dream narrative coherence. When these patterns are present, dreamers report more story-like, connected dreams. When they are absent or disrupted, dreamers report fragmented imagery with no narrative thread. These oscillation patterns are generated by interactions between the default mode network, the brain's self-referential system, and the thalamocortical loops that generate sensory experience. The brain is a natural storyteller, even in sleep. It cannot help but construct a narrative from whatever material it has. Certain animals appear to experience something like dreaming. Rats who have undergone a stressful experience, such as navigating a maze with aversive stimuli, show heightened amygdala activity during subsequent REM sleep and exhibit behavioral signs during sleep that parallel their waking responses. Octopuses, whose sleep stages include a phase with rapid color and texture changes, have been observed cycling through patterns that some researchers interpret as possibly reflecting lived experience. Whether these animals experience something subjective remains one of the deepest open questions in neuroscience. But the neural machinery for something like dreaming appears ancient, conserved across hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Whatever dreaming does, it mattered enough for the brain to keep it. The word dream itself has ancient roots. In Old English, the word dream originally meant joy, music, or revelry, rather than the nocturnal mental experience we now associate with it. The current meaning gradually displaced the original over several centuries. Across most of the world's languages, the word for dream is linguistically distinct from the word for thought, suggesting that humans have always recognized, in language and in culture, that what happens in sleep is categorically different from what happens while awake. And across all of those languages, across all of those cultures, one thing remained constant. The dream not spoken aloud before sunrise was lost. Language remembered what sleep released. Some researchers have proposed that dreaming serves a function akin to an offline simulation, a kind of rehearsal space where the brain models possible futures, processes social complexity, and experiments with responses to difficult situations. all without real-world consequences. This threat simulation theory, associated with Finnish neuroscientist Antti Revonsuo, suggests that the negative emotional content common in dreams is not incidental but purposeful. The brain is practicing for the difficult. If this theory is correct, then forgetting the dream is analogous to forgetting a practice session. What was gained is not the memory of the rehearsal. It is the slightly improved readiness to meet whatever comes. The question of whether dreams have meaning is one science has approached from many angles without reaching a single answer. Modern neuroscience tends to be careful about attributing symbolic meaning to dreams, noting that much of what we experience as meaningful dream content is the waking mind's interpretation of neurological processing. But research also shows that dream content is systematically structured, emotionally coherent within its own logic, and reliably connected to the dreamer's waking concerns. Whether meaning is made by the dreaming brain or imposed by the interpreting mind, or whether there is finally no difference between those two things, remains a genuinely open question. The dreams you remember offer something worth sitting with, quietly, without demanding an answer. Individuals who practice meditation regularly show distinct changes in their sleep architecture, including more time spent in slow-wave NREM sleep, greater sleep efficiency, and altered REM patterns. Some long-term meditators report unusual clarity during dreaming, sometimes resembling lucid dreaming without deliberate induction. Research from institutions, including Harvard and the Max Planck Institute, suggests that meditation-related changes in default mode network activity and prefrontal cortex regulation may carry over into sleep, creating a different relationship between the waking self and the dreaming self. The meditator who has practiced turning attention inward all day may find it slightly easier to hold on to the dream that floats to the surface in the morning. During pregnancy, dream recall increases for many people. Hormonal changes, disrupted sleep architecture, and more frequent nighttime awakenings all contribute. Many pregnant people report unusually vivid, emotionally layered dreams, often featuring themes of birth, care, vulnerability, and the future. Researchers believe this reflects the brain processing the scale of change approaching, using the dreaming state to work through what waking life has not yet fully absorbed. The heightened recall during late pregnancy may also be linked to more frequent nighttime awakenings, each one creating a brief window where dream content can begin to consolidate before fading. It is one of the gentler reminders that the sleeping mind is always responsive to what the waking life is carrying. The default mode network, a set of interconnected brain regions active during rest, daydreaming, and self-referential thought, is highly active during REM sleep and is believed to be a primary generator of dream content. This same network, which includes the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, and the angular gyrus, is also active during mind-wandering, autobiographical memory recall, and imagining the future. The overlap is not coincidental. Dreaming and daydreaming appear to draw on the same neural infrastructure. The dreaming brain is doing, in an altered state, something it also does while you sit quietly in a waiting room, staring at nothing. It is telling itself stories about itself. The experience of falling in a dream, one of the most widely reported dream phenomena, is thought to arise from hypnic jerks, the sudden muscle contractions that sometimes occur at the onset of sleep, As the brain transitions into sleep and motor activity begins to quiet, it may interpret the sudden settling as physical descent, generating a brief sensation of falling. This experience has been recorded across cultures and throughout history, suggesting it reflects something fundamental about the neurology of falling asleep rather than individual psychology. The body and the dreaming mind are in conversation even at the very threshold of sleep, negotiating the handover from one state to the other. The speed at which dream memories fade has been measured in laboratory settings. Studies using immediate post-waking recall testing, followed by delayed recall testing at 5 and 20 minutes after waking, find that dream content fades at a rate considerably faster than memories of waking events. After just 5 minutes, the majority of a dream's narrative structure is gone. After 20 minutes, most dreamers retain only an emotional residue and perhaps 1 or 2 images. This rapid decay is consistent with what we know about transitional memory traces and the neurochemical shift of waking. It also helps explain why the act of lying still and gently attending to the dream immediately upon waking is the most effective strategy for recall. There is no second chance. The window closes within minutes. Research has found that dreams, while primarily experienced as visual and emotional, do contain verbal content, dialogue, internal monologue, and occasional reading in a meaningful proportion of reports. However, the language of dreams is often degraded in ways that differ from waking language. Words are harder to read clearly. Conversations are remembered as impressions rather than transcripts, and the verbal logic that characterizes waking thought is loosened. This is consistent with reduced activity in the language processing areas of the left hemisphere during REM sleep, and with the emotional, imagistic quality of dream experience. The dreaming mind speaks in images before it speaks in words, and images, upon waking, dissolve before words have a chance to catch them. This is perhaps one small reason the feeling of a dream outlasts its story. There is a curious asymmetry in how the brain handles positive and negative dream content upon waking. Research suggests that emotionally negative dream content, anxiety, fear, loss, tends to leave a stronger residual emotional trace even when the narrative details are forgotten. You may not remember what the dream was about, but you wake with a feeling of unease that has no name. Conversely, positive dream content, joy, warmth, love, tends to leave a more diffuse trace that is harder to locate upon waking, but may contribute to the baseline sense of well-being that follows a good night of sleep. The dream's feeling outlasts its story. The body knows what the mind has let go. Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative conditions are associated with significant disruption of REM sleep, and research suggests this disruption may appear years before cognitive symptoms become apparent. The relationship appears to be bidirectional. Disrupted REM sleep reduces the glymphatic clearance of amyloid proteins, which may contribute to neurodegeneration over time. While the neurodegeneration itself alters REM architecture, sleep researchers now consider sleep quality, and particularly REM sleep quality, a meaningful metric in understanding long-term brain health. One of several factors, alongside genetics and lifestyle, that shape what unfolds over time. What happens in the dreaming night is not separate from the waking mind's future. It is part of what shapes it. The question of whether machines could dream is no longer entirely abstract. Certain artificial neural networks, particularly those trained on visual data, have been shown to produce hallucinatory outputs when fed ambiguous or incomplete input, a process sometimes described as dreaming in popular language. Whether this constitutes anything like what the sleeping brain does is a matter of ongoing scientific debate. What it does illuminate is what is unusual about biological dreaming. It is not simply pattern generation. It is pattern generation in the context of a living body, an emotional history, an ongoing narrative self. The neural network produces images. The dreaming brain produces experience. And experience, whatever it is, remains beyond the reach of any algorithm yet designed. Certain foods have been studied for their potential effects on dreaming. Tryptophan-rich foods, including dairy and certain nuts, are precursors to serotonin and melatonin, and are sometimes associated with calmer dream content. Vitamin B6, found in foods like bananas, salmon, and chickpeas, has been studied for its role in dream vividness. Some small studies suggest supplemental B6 may increase the clarity of dream recall, though the research remains preliminary and should not be taken as established guidance. The connection between what we eat and what we dream reflects the deep integration of the dreaming brain with the biology of the whole body. The night is not separate from the day that fed it. The experience of dreaming in a second language is a phenomenon many language learners report as a landmark. The moment you first dream in a language you are learning. Research in bilingual and multilingual populations suggests that the language used in dreams correlates with level of proficiency, frequency of use, and emotional significance. People tend to dream more often in their most emotionally resonant language, which is usually, though not always, their first language. The dreaming brain does not choose language rationally. It chooses from wherever the deepest emotional encoding lives. For some people, the language of the deepest self is the one they came to inhabit most fully. Long after childhood, the dream knows where you truly live, and like everything else in the dream, when morning comes, even those words dissolve first. Sound during sleep can influence dream content directly. Research has demonstrated that external sounds, when introduced at a low enough volume not to wake the sleeper, are sometimes incorporated into the ongoing dream narrative. A ringing sound becomes a telephone in the dream. Rain outside becomes a waterfall, a river, an ocean. The dreaming brain is not fully sealed off from the world. It receives incoming signals and weaves them into its current story, seamlessly, without interrupting the narrative it has already built. This is one of the reasons that ambient sounds are so commonly used to support sleep. They give the dreaming brain something gentle to work with. And when the dream dissolves in the morning, those sounds will be all that remains. Research has found that the emotional tone of the last thing you experience before sleep tends to influence the emotional tone of your dreams. People who engage in calming activities before bed, gentle reading, soft music, quiet conversation, tend toward more neutral or positive dream content. This is consistent with the continuity hypothesis and with what we know about emotional priming in waking cognition. The brain enters sleep carrying the emotional residue of its last waking moments. What you choose to place at the threshold of sleep is not nothing. It is the material the dreaming mind will work with first. The act of sharing a dream, telling someone about it in words upon waking, appears to improve the coherence and emotional processing of dream content. Research in psychotherapy and in everyday psychological observation suggests that the act of narrative reconstruction, turning the fragmentary, image-based experience of dreaming into language, helps integrate the emotional content of the dream into waking understanding. This is partly why dreams discussed in therapy carry particular weight. The telling creates coherence where the dream itself had only feeling. It also, in a gentle way, helps us grieve the forgetting less. To tell a dream to someone you trust is to give it a life beyond the night it was born in. Children with autism spectrum disorder show distinct patterns of dreaming and dream recall. Research has found that, on average, children with autism report fewer social interactions in their dreams than neurotypical children, consistent with differences in social processing that characterize the spectrum. They also report a higher rate of repetitive themes and scenarios in their dreams, parallel to the preference for routines observed in waking life. These findings offer a window into how the dreaming brain reflects the specific architecture of the individual mind that generates it. The dream is not separate from who you are. It is built from the same materials. It moves through the same channels, and it leaves traces in the same soil. 3/4 of the way through our journey, the picture is nearly complete. Forgetting dreams is not a failure of the sleeping brain. It is a feature of its design, a boundary drawn by the neurochemistry that makes dreaming possible, and maintained by the quiet speed with which waking consciousness reasserts itself. The dreams you don't remember may have done their most important work, processing emotion, rehearsing responses, consolidating the unseen patterns of your inner life. And the dreams you do remember, those few survivors, are not more important than the ones that vanished. They are simply luckier. They reached you before the tide came in. The ones that didn't are still part of who you are. Even though you cannot name them, you carry them without knowing it. In the way your body feels after a night of dreaming, lighter than it was before. You might be feeling tired now. That's perfectly fine. Breathe slowly. Feel the cycles. Your heart beats without instruction. Your lungs fill and empty without thought. Your brain moves through its stages. REM, then deep sleep, then REM again, in a rhythm as old as the species itself. Like the tide, like the turning of the earth, like the seasons moving through their ancient circuit. You are also part of that eternal movement. You don't need to hold on to anything. Let everything unfold in its perfect order, unhurried, unresisting, simply existing. We're almost there now. You have already had thousands of dreams you will never remember. Each one was real, in the only way that mattered. It felt real while it was happening. Your brain built those worlds entirely on its own. From memory and emotion and the gentle alchemy of sleep, they served their purpose. They did their work, and then they dissolved. The way morning fog dissolves, leaving only the clarity behind. The brain never stops processing during sleep, even in the deepest stages, where consciousness is most remote. The brain continues to monitor the environment, regulate the body, and move information between systems. Sleep is the body's most productive state, invisible to the mind observing it, but essential to everything that follows. What appears as emptiness, the quiet of dreamless sleep, is the surface of something deeply active beneath. Melatonin, the hormone most associated with sleep, is produced by the pineal gland in response to darkness. It does not cause sleep directly, but signals the brain that nighttime has arrived. gradually shifting the body's systems toward rest. Melatonin levels are lowest in the morning and highest in the middle of the night. It is part of the quiet chemical tide that governs your sleep architecture, including the timing and depth of your REM periods, and by extension, the dreams you almost remember upon waking. Some fragments of dreams survive the morning not as images but as feelings. You wake with a sense of warmth towards someone you cannot identify, a low-level unease that has no cause you can name, a sense of having been somewhere beautiful. These emotional residues are real neurological traces, the last thing remaining after the narrative has dissolved. They are the dream's way of staying with you, even after the dreams themselves are gone. The research on sleep and creativity consistently finds that the answers to problems you cannot solve while awake sometimes appear intact after sleeping on them. The phrase itself, sleeping on a problem, is ancient and cross-cultural. What neuroscience has found is that this is not metaphor. The sleeping brain continues processing unresolved problems, making connections between distant pieces of information that the focused waking mind tends to miss. The morning insight is real. It came from somewhere. You just weren't awake for the work. Naps shorter than 30 minutes generally do not include significant REM sleep, but naps of 60 to 90 minutes often conclude with a REM period, particularly later in the day when REM pressure has accumulated. This is why a mid-afternoon nap sometimes produces unusually vivid dreams, and why those dreams are often remembered more clearly than nighttime dreams. The napper frequently wakes from REM directly. Without the long final sleep cycle of overnight sleep, the nap dream is caught in the act. In the hours before natural waking, the body temperature begins a gradual rise. Core body temperature reaches its minimum at roughly 2 to 3 in the morning, and then slowly climbs. This thermal shift is one of the signals that prepares the brain for waking, influencing the depth and quality of the final REM period. By the time you open your eyes, your biology has already been easing you toward the surface for hours, quietly, without announcement. The dreaming mind is not bound by the laws of physics. It creates spaces that are simultaneously inside and outside, objects that are two things at once, time that moves in multiple directions. This is possible because the prefrontal cortex, which enforces logical consistency in waking thought, is quiet during REM. Without it, the narrative can be anything. The dream self accepts all of it without question. Walking through walls, speaking with the gone, it is the most unconstrained state the mind ever enters, and nearly all of it is forgotten by morning. The experience of time in dreams is distorted in ways that are difficult to fully quantify. Dreams can feel as though they span hours, even when the actual REM period was only 20 minutes. Conversely, some intense dream experiences feel instantaneous, even though they contain complex narrative structures. Researchers believe this distortion reflects the absence of time-stamping processes that normally operate in the hippocampus during waking experience. Without those processes, the dreaming mind has no reliable clock. Time becomes elastic, personal, and entirely unconstrained by the hours passing outside. The people who appear most often in our dreams tend to be those with the most emotional significance in our lives. Research by Calvin Hall, who analyzed tens of thousands of dream reports across decades, found that familiar figures, family members, close friends, and romantic partners appeared far more frequently than strangers. The dreaming brain keeps the most emotionally significant people close, even in sleep, even across years of physical distance, even after loss, perhaps especially then. Some cultures treat dreaming as a communal practice. The Achuar people of the Amazon begin each day with a communal dream-sharing session, treating dreams as guidance for the day ahead. The Iroquois tradition recognized the inner dimension of dreams and encouraged community members to help one another honor what dreaming had surfaced. These traditions do not conflict with neuroscience. They simply place a different value on what the brain releases each morning. What modern science treats as neurological processing to be understood, other traditions have treated as signal to be honored. Both perspectives may carry something true. There is something called the white bear problem in dream science. The things we try hardest not to think about before sleep are often exactly what we dream about. The suppression of a thought requires active cognitive effort. Sleep suspends that effort. And in the suspension, what was suppressed surfaces freely, sometimes with greater presence than it would have had if simply allowed. This is not a flaw in the sleeping mind. It is the sleeping mind doing what it was built to do, processing what is emotionally present, without the filters the waking self uses to manage its inner world. The dream handles what the day could not. As we approach the final facts tonight, something quieter settles in. The science of dream forgetting is ultimately a science of impermanence. Everything the brain builds during sleep, every world, every face, every feeling that felt more real than waking, is designed to dissolve, and yet the dissolution is not loss. It is completion. The dream did what it was built to do. It carried the brain through a night of essential work, and by morning, gently, quietly, it let go. Some researchers believe that the experience of dreaming may be the closest thing the human mind has to observing its own neural architecture directly. When you dream, you are experiencing, in some sense, the raw output of a brain freed from external input and running entirely on its own internal models. The dream is the mind looking at itself through a medium it doesn't fully control, in a language it can't quite speak when it wakes. What you catch of it in the morning is a message from a part of yourself that only speaks in sleep. The forgotten dream is not nothing. It shaped your neurochemistry. It processed your emotions. It rehearsed your relationships. It softened what was difficult and gently amplified what was healing. You will never know exactly what happened in those hours, but your body does. The lighter feeling, the shifted perspective, the unexpected patience of a morning after a full night of dreaming. These are the quiet fingerprints of a brain that worked through the night so that you could begin the day a little more whole. There is a gentleness in the design of the forgetting. If every dream was remembered with perfect clarity, the inner world would become as crowded and demanding as the outer one. The forgetting creates space. It allows sleep to remain a refuge, a place the waking mind cannot fully follow. The dream belongs entirely to the night in which it happened, and in the morning, the night gives it back to silence. Researchers who study the neuroscience of consciousness sometimes point to dreaming as evidence that consciousness is not a single thing. The consciousness of dreaming is different from the consciousness of waking, which is different from the consciousness of deep sleep. Each is a different mode of the same underlying system. The self that walks through your dreams is real, but it is not quite the self that listens now. They share a brain, but they are not identical. The dream self knows things the waking self has forgotten, and forgets things the waking self will spend all day trying to find. There is a recurring image in the science of dreams. A river, the dreaming mind as a river, moving through the night, carrying sediment from the day, sorting it, depositing some on distant banks, carrying the rest away. You are the river. The dreams are the movement. The forgetting is the water returning to its source. Nothing is lost. Everything is changed. Every night you sleep, you cross a threshold. The waking self relaxes its grip. The monitoring quiets. The judgment softens. And in that softening, something else begins. Something your waking mind did not plan, did not direct, and cannot fully remember. Whatever it is, it has been happening in human brains for as long as there have been human brains. Through every era, every difficulty, every night of grief or joy or ordinary tiredness, the dreaming has continued. It continues tonight. We forget our dreams because the mind that dreams and the mind that remembers are not quite the same mind. Not because the dreams don't matter, not because they are without meaning, but because meaning, in sleep, is stored differently. It is stored in the body, in the emotions, in the subtle shifts of chemistry that accumulate across a lifetime of nights. The dream you forgot this morning is still in you somewhere. In some form, you just can't point to it. You just can't name it. But it was there, and in some quiet way, it still is. The most common question sleep researchers receive from the public is not about REM cycles or neurochemistry. It is simpler than all of that. It is, what did my dream mean? And the honest scientific answer is, we don't fully know. We know what the brain was doing. We know which structures were active. We know that the content was shaped by your emotions and your history and the specific chemistry of that particular night. But whether the dream was trying to tell you something, that question lives at the edge of what science can reach. It is yours to sit with, quietly, as you fall asleep tonight. Tonight, when you sleep, you will dream. You almost certainly won't remember it. The chemistry will do its work. The morning will come, and whatever world your brain built will dissolve before you have a chance to fully grasp it. But it will have happened. It will have served its purpose. And when you wake feeling somehow lighter than the day deserved, that is the dream's gift, delivered in the only way the sleeping brain knows how. Silently, invisibly, in the language of feeling rather than words. The science of sleep is still young. Many of the most fundamental questions remain open. The precise function of dreaming, the neurological basis of consciousness during REM, the exact mechanism by which emotional memory is processed and released during sleep. What researchers agree on is that sleep matters more than most of us allow it to. And dreaming, even the dreaming we forget entirely, is part of why the brain you brought to sleep tonight will be different in the morning. Subtly, quietly, the way all meaningful change happens. While you weren't quite paying attention, there is something comforting in the forgetting. Once you understand it, you don't need to hold on to every dream. You don't need to decode every image or explain every feeling. The dreaming brain is not sending you a message that requires a response. It is simply doing its work. In the dark, in the silence, as it has always done. And when morning comes, and the dream slips away before you can catch it, you can let it go. It did what it came to do. And so, tonight, can you? Why do you forget your dreams? Because the mind that dreams and the mind that remembers are not quite the same mind. Because the chemistry of sleep and the chemistry of memory, by design, incompatible. Because the brain values what it does in sleep more than the record of it. And because forgetting, in this one ancient corner of human experience, is not loss, it is release. The dream was real. It mattered. And it let you go. As all beautiful things eventually do. And so, our quiet journey through the science of dreams comes to a gentle close. We began by learning that within 10 minutes of waking, 90% of the dreaming world is already gone. We learned why. The neurochemistry of REM, sleep, that state of high acetylcholine and quieted norepinephrine, is the same chemistry that makes memory formation nearly impossible. And we ended somewhere deeper than neuroscience, with the understanding that the dreams you don't remember were not wasted. They carried out the brain's most essential work, processing emotion, rehearsing relationships, preparing you for what comes next, from the chemistry that erases to the feelings that remain. We have glimpsed something true about the mind that builds worlds it was never meant to keep. The dreaming brain reminds us that not everything meaningful needs to be remembered to matter. Much of the most important work of the mind happens in silence, without record, without witness. The dreams you've forgotten shaped you by pausing to notice what disappears. We glimpse something gentle about how the mind takes care of itself, night after night, in the dark. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Think about unity, of every thought you've had today, every feeling, every moment of reaching for the dream that was already leaving. Think about consciousness itself, yours, and everyone else listening in the dark tonight. All of us here, all awareness everywhere, perhaps connected in ways we don't yet understand. You are not alone in the universe of minds. Let your entire being dissolve into the ocean of consciousness, into the space between waking and sleeping, where thought becomes image and image becomes rest. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. If this gentle journey through the science of forgetting helped you rest tonight, or helped you hold a little more tenderly to the fragments of your dreams, perhaps pass it softly along to someone else who lies awake in the dark, wondering where their dreams go. It might be exactly what another quiet mind is searching for. One gentle tap, one peaceful night at a time. But there is nothing you need to do now. Nothing at all. You have traveled far tonight, through the neurochemistry of sleep, through the emotional landscape of the dreaming mind, through 100 quiet facts about why the brain builds worlds and lets them go. You can allow all of that to fade now, like the last image of a dream at dawn. Present, then softer, then simply part of everything, leaving only the quiet, unheld calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if all you've carried today is being sorted by careful, invisible hands, and is simply setting itself down. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way consolidation does, not with force, but with quiet intention, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, your dreaming mind will still be there, still tending, still weaving, still becoming. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, sleepy soul, and remember, your mind is always rewriting itself toward the light. Good night.